Very important medical disclaimer. Information provided in this podcast is for educational purposes only and does not substitute for professional medical advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health care provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or treatment before undertaking a new health regimen. Welcome to the Holistic Health Explained podcast. I'm your host, Shantae Fox, and my guest for today's episode is Kathleen McCauley with Hypnosis to Change Your Life. Kathleen is a certified hypnotherapist, licensed clinical social worker, licensed independent substance abuse counselor, and rapid transformational therapy practitioner. She has been in the mental health field since the late 90s in various settings that include the ER, psychiatric hospitals, detox centers, and residential treatment centers. After becoming certified as a hypnotherapist in 2018, Kathleen started Hypnosis to Change Your Life in 2021. She works with multiple issues including anxiety, trauma, confidence, poor sleep, weight loss and healthy lifestyle, smoking, addictions, relationship issues, fears, and phobias. Welcome to the show, Kathleen, and thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me today. I've been super eager to learn more about hypnotherapy, but before we get into that, I am going to ask you my icebreaker question. Would you please share with us a fun fact or something that many people might not know about you?
Absolutely, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak with you about hypnosis today.
Yes.
Fun fact is I am kind of a sci-fi nerd. I like all of the science fiction movies and shows, and I think it's because I'm really imaginative, and it ties a lot into hypnosis and hypnotherapy.
I bet, yeah.
When I'm working with people, I ask them to really tap into their imagination and to be able to imagine how they want their life to be different.
Okay, yeah, I can definitely see how that ties in to each other. Do you have a favorite sci-fi show or movie?
I have a lot that I like. The most recent one that I just watched for the second time is The Expanse. It's on Amazon Prime. It's a really good show.
Is it? I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, check it out. It's interesting. It's a great show.
We'll have to check it out. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
It's been super fun hearing everybody's little fun
facts.
Yeah. Let's us get to know everybody a little bit better.
Sure.
You know, a little bit of personal thing. So you've been a partner here at Sozo for a few years now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you offer your hypnotherapy services here.
I do.
I feel like hypnotherapy may be a deeply misunderstood therapy or healing modality because I feel like the first thing that pops into people's mind is the vision of the hypnotherapist snapping their finger and you instantly start barking like a dog or whatever it is they tell you you're going to do, right?
Sure. I know. I always ask people what their experience is with hypnosis before I work with them. I always provide a free phone call to kind of talk about what hypnosis is and what to expect and what my approach is like. And a lot of people have either been to a comedy show or they've seen some sort of creepy movie,
right?
You know, and it's not. What I do is not like that.
Okay.
Hypnosis is a normal, natural state of focused attention. Where your mind can be really open and receptive to information, but you remain in control. So I don't have any power over anybody. I make suggestions based on what the individual wants to accomplish in their life. And then I take them through different scenarios to help figure out what is preventing them from getting there and how can we shift that or reframe it or change it.
Okay.
And hypnosis, the state of hypnosis is really closely related to REM sleep. And what I mean by that is you tend to be more imaginative. Some people tend to be more visual, not everybody. Sometimes people will feel like they're floating a little bit, or they might feel really heavy. People have reported tingling in their extremities. And those are all kinds of similar things that happen to us when we're in REM sleep. The other thing that I will state is we do go into hypnotic or trance-like states on our own without any formal induction, so to speak. And the best example I have of that is driving. When you first learn how to drive, you have to pay attention to so many factors, right? Put your seatbelt on, start the car, adjust the mirrors, make sure you're paying attention to what's going on around you in the periphery. And after you've learned how to drive for a while, your body just kind of jumps in and performs the task. You don't have to think about it anymore.
Right.
After you've been driving for several years. And maybe you get home after work and you got home safe, but you don't really remember all the steps you took to get there.
I've had that quite a few times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't even remember like the driving down the street.
Absolutely, yeah, but you made it safe. Yeah. So your body just kind of jumped in and performed the task without you having to think about all the steps.
Okay.
Or you miss your exit on the highway because you're having a conversation. That's an example of a normal trance-like state. Or if you're really engrossed in an activity like watching a movie, reading a book, and you feel as though you're identifying with the characters. You're not paying attention to anything else in your environment. And maybe your phone rings or the doorbell rings and it startles you.
Okay.
Or any of us that have teenagers know that when they're playing video games, they're completely enthralled in that, right? You can yell their name over and over again and they're just not going to hear you.
Yeah. Oh, I have testament to that as well. Yes, definitely. So it kind of sounds like your previous work that you have been involved with all kind of inform, I don't know if the right term is to say psychology, but something that deals with the human mind.
Sure.
Right? So what made you explore and get certified as a hypnotherapist?
So I've always been really interested in what motivates people, what makes people tick. And I've been interested in both mental health on the side of it where people are having disruptions in their life, whether it be depression, anxiety, or another mental health crisis. But I've also always been really interested in, what drives people, what motivates them. Why do some people succeed very well despite difficult circumstances in their life, while other individuals maybe have everything going for them, but don't really do much with their lives? What's the rationale behind that? What's the meaning behind that? So I've always been really interested in that. And when I worked in the mental health various settings for many years, I learned a lot and I really enjoyed it. But I just kind of felt like I wanted to shift over into something more positive. And in hypnosis, we talk about generative versus remedial changes. So remedial changes are things like, I don't want to feel so anxious, or I'm afraid of flying and I want to feel comfortable when I'm flying.
Okay.
And generative changes would be, I want to learn to play a new instrument. I want to get better at sports. I want to be a better communicator or public speaker. Okay. It's improving your baseline from where you're at, essentially.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, So I shifted over to hypnotherapy. I studied yoga for a while. I wanted to be more holistic, and I wanted to focus more on positive aspects of mental health and change.
Okay. That's interesting too. So you told us a little bit about what hypnotherapy is. Can you clarify what the benefits are for people who, would be interested in having a session?
Sure. There are lots of benefits with hypnotherapy. I personally like working with things like improving confidence, helping to decrease anxiety, improving relationship issues, communication. But there's a whole host of benefits. There's a lot of medical benefits, actually, really? For decreasing blood pressure, helping with managing and coping chronic pain.
Okay.
There are benefits in terms of just helping with goal setting or anything really that you want to improve in your life. Think of it as though you're shifting your mindset to work for you rather than against you.
Okay.
And our brains are really these very sophisticated computers, to use that metaphor. And when you're working with a really sophisticated computer, you want to know how it works, right? Mm-hmm. You want to have the manual. You want to be able to use it to the best of your ability. And hypnosis helps teach people how to do that.
Okay.
And we're really working with the subconscious or the unconscious part of your mind. People use those terms kind of interchangeably. And when we talk about our conscious analytical mind versus our subconscious mind, it's an abstract idea. You can't look on a CAT scan or an MRI and see consciousness or your mind, right? But think of your analytical mind as the part of your mind that can pay attention to around 7 to 9 things at any given time. So right now, I'm paying attention to the conversation we're having. I'm anticipating questions you might be asking. I'm thinking about providing good examples and information to the audience. Mm-hmm. I'm also paying attention to the temperature of the room that we're in. Maybe I'm thinking about what to make for dinner later, those types of things, right?
Right.
But our subconscious mind is running thousands of things simultaneously. Our heart rate, our calcium channels, our liver enzymes, our blinking reflex, what happened to me when I was 2 years old. All of those things, the subconscious mind is paying attention to and monitoring. Wow. And when we can harness the power of that, we can create change more rapidly and more readily in our lives.
Right.
It's like having that manual to that computer and knowing how it works.
Okay. Yeah, it sounds like hypnotherapy could benefit everybody in some form because we're all usually trying to better something about ourselves, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Anybody who's open to it, anybody who's open and receptive to it. Again, I can't force anything on anyone. I don't have any control over it. It's a collaboration that I guide people through.
Right. Have you ever had a client who thought that they were ready or open to it, but just couldn't, I don't know what the word, submit or allow that to happen?
Sure. I've worked with people that have some resistance. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, I work with them to figure out where that resistance is coming from and what purpose is it serving in their lives. Good. Because all behavior serves a purpose, even if we're not happy with the outcome. Mm-hmm. All behavior serves a purpose. And a lot of times it's something like a protective state or a protective mechanism. Sometimes people's behaviors are to punish themselves. They're not consciously thinking, I want to punish myself, but they have some sort of belief that is leading them to feel that they deserve that.
Right.
And so when we get resistance, we work with it. We try to figure out where is that coming from? What role does it serve? And is there perhaps a different way that you could feel safe or protected in your life without that resistance?
Right. This kind of made me think of, I feel like a lot of people today would agree that, we, at least here in America, that we are having a mental crisis with a lot of people in the world today. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it does sound like hypnotherapy could greatly benefit anybody who's going through something of the sort. Would you agree with that? And what would you say is the difference between like seeing a hypnotherapist versus seeing a psychologist or a psychiatrist?
Sure. And yes, I would agree with that. There's a lot going on in the world, and it's overwhelming and it's really stressful, and people need help coping with
Right.
everything that's going on. And hypnotherapy can definitely assist with that. And the difference between a psychologist and a psychiatrist is actually a medical doctor who's going to prescribe medications.
Mm-hmm.
A psychologist is not going to prescribe medications. They're not licensed to, but they will provide therapy and testing and diagnosis for mental health disorders.
Okay.
Hypnotherapy is different in the sense that I don't work with a diagnosis per se. I ask people what it is they want to focus on.
Okay.
How will you know this is working? How do you want to be feeling? What will other people notice? And it's really important that people start to notice changes in their lives, because sometimes they're subtle and sometimes they're big. But it's important to notice it, to look for it.
Right.
Because you're training your brain to look for what you want rather than what you don't want. And hypnotherapy is typically much more short term. I work with people to essentially not need me. I can teach people how to hypnotize themselves. I provide a lot of concrete, basic resources to help them look at situations in their life differently and to help them find themselves in more positive or resourceful states when they're feeling overwhelmed or anxious or down.
Okay.
And like I said, it's real short term. So typically I see people 1 to 3 sessions. I do have a handful of clients that I see a couple of times a year, but it's not meant to be like the traditional therapy where you see somebody once a week for a few months and you work on a particular diagnosis.
Okay.
I'm really not interested in labels. I'm interested in what the person wants to focus on.
Right. It sounds like it's very results oriented. Like you're
Yes.
working towards a goal
Yes.
and, trying to achieve that. Which in turn sounds like you can achieve much faster, which means you don't need to see them on a regular basis like a psychologist
Absolutely,
would, right?
absolutely. And I also don't treat, like I said, we don't do the diagnosis, and I don't treat those really more long-term mental health disorders.
Okay, gotcha.
Hypnotherapy is not really appropriate for that. Okay. But if someone wants to come in and say, I'm struggling with anxiety, I'm feeling down, I just had a recent loss and I'm struggling with grief, then certainly we can work on those issues. But again, I don't focus on the diagnosis so much.
Okay. Well, do you mind giving us maybe a little visual of what a hypnotherapy session would look like? Like walk us through what a typical session would be for a first timer.
Sure, absolutely. So like I said before, I always talk to people on the phone before I actually see them, because I want to kind of talk about some of these things and help them understand what to expect.
Okay.
But also to make sure that we have some rapport with each other, and to make sure that it's something that I feel that I can help the person with.
Okay, yes.
And then when I see them, I ask them what it is they really want to focus on. And some of this information I get ahead of time, but what do you want as a result of this session?
Okay.
And I ask them to get real detailed about that. I focus more on the result rather than what has been going wrong the whole time.
Okay.
I get a little bit of brief history, and then I move towards the results. And my sessions usually last about 2 hours, and I spend that first 45 minutes or so teaching how to get your mindset to work for you rather than against you. And I provide different tools and techniques that the person can use on their own, how to look at situations in their life differently, how to reframe them or tell themselves a different story about their lives.
Okay.
And I also teach ways to move yourself from negative states into more positive states. And one of the techniques that I like is the as-if technique. How would you be behaving if you were feeling confident? What would your body language be like? What would your breathing be like? What would you be thinking about? And when you step into that as if category, you'll start to notice that you feel and think and behave differently. You feel and think and behave like the confident person that you want to be. And so I teach a lot of different tools like that, easy to use. And then I move into the hypnosis part of the session. And my sessions are interactive, meaning I ask questions throughout the process. It's not just where I'm talking the whole time and the person just relaxes with their eyes closed. Because I want to get to what has kept you from making this change up to this point in your life.
Right.
Why haven't you been able to do it already? What's that block or that belief that you're holding on to that's not letting you move forward? Excuse me. And there are lots of different techniques that we use to work with people to help them move from point A to point B through the hypnosis part of the session. And everybody's different. At the end of the session, I provide an audio recording that's about 15 to 20 minutes long. That focuses on all the positive benefits that they want to achieve as a result of the session.
Okay. And then is that personalized or is it general? Okay.
It's personalized, yeah. And it's based on the things that they tell me they want to be experiencing, feeling, noticing.
Okay.
And I email that to them and ask them to listen to it every day for about a month. Because our brains are neuroplastic, so the more we practice and listen and repeat, the more readily you can make that a new habit.
Right.
And then I'm available for follow-up as needed, but typically what I do is I check in with that person about a week later and see where they're at, and we schedule any follow-up from there.
Okay. I was going to ask how often do you recommend clients come back, but you kind of went over that already.
Sure.
So I'm sure it depends on the person too, but
it does.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have any advice on how to find a hypnosis therapist such as yourself for people who are not here local?
Sure, absolutely. A lot of people also work online, and I do as well, although most of my clientele tend to be local. So a lot of people find me by just going to Google and hypnosis near me. So that would be a great place to start. The other thing that you can do is look up different hypnotherapy boards. Okay. So I'm with the National Guild of Hypnotherapists, but there are several different boards of hypnotherapy that you could look up online. And like I said, a lot of people, even though you might have a hard time finding somebody local, a lot of people do offer it via Zoom or some other modality online.
Are there any special certifications one should look for to make sure they're certified to do what they're...
Sure. So hypnotherapy is a little different than, say, like my social work license and my substance abuse license. There are lots of different trainings and different... I called it a board, but it's not exactly a board. There are lots of different trainings and agencies that will certify you for hypnosis, but the criteria is different than counseling professionals.
Right.
So I would just ask whoever you find that you're speaking with where they studied and what their qualifications are.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, do you have any other words of wisdom or advice you'd like to give the audience in regards to hypnotherapy?
Sure, absolutely. The life that you want to be living, whatever goal it is that you want to achieve, you can absolutely have it. You can do it. Your brain is miraculous and brilliant, and it just takes some time and techniques to learn how to get it to work for you rather than against you. Our default is to look for the negative to protect us and keep us safe, but you can learn how to shift that. And you'd be surprised at how simple a lot of the techniques are and how drastic the changes can be in your life. So if you've tried other types of modalities and you haven't been happy with it, check out hypnotherapy in your area and just see what you think about it. And I'm certainly available to answer any questions if you want to reach out to me also.
Yeah, let our listeners know how they can find you if they want to reach out to you.
Sure. The best way to get in touch with me is just through my number, 480-216-4785.
Okay.
And you can text me or call me and I will get back to you.
I'll put that in our notes too, so it'll be written out for anybody who wants to see that. Well, I thank you so much for coming on the show today and helping us learn about your modality of hypnotherapy. I thank you so much, and I thank everybody else for tuning in today and listening to this episode of Holistic Health Explained. I'm your host, Shantae. Be well, my friends.